It was pension day, and Henry and Rita were up early as they liked to get their weekly shopping done before it got too busy. As Henry backed out the car from the garage, Rita locked up the house. Soon they were on their way to the large supermarket and huge shopping complex in the Matrix Mall centre. They liked to get into the shops before they opened, as it gave them time to park the car in the underground car park and avoid the morning rush of school buses and the daily hustle and bustle of everyday life. The car park was quieter than expected, and as Henry parked the car in a spot beside the lifts, he said, "We're the first ones here, dear." Rita replied, "Yes. It feels kind of strange to see no cars or people." As Henry locked up the car, Rita went over to push the lift button. The doors opened up of the lift and in they went. When they walked out of the lift, they were inside a carnival ground where men walked on stilts and jugglers tossed balls in the air. Crowds of people stood around the various sideshows, and someone dressed in a large rabbit suit grabbed Rita and Henry by the hand and took them over to a large Ferris wheel ride where an empty carriage for 2 people was waiting. The rabbit prompted Henry and Rita to climb in. They both looked at each other, and they could hardly believe it when they saw they had turned into little children. Rita giggled, and she said to Henry, "Come on, Henry, what are you waiting for?" Henry looked at the rabbit, who handed him a book of tickets. "You need these, Henry. These are your free ride tickets when you get back." Henry looked at the tickets and said, "Get back from where?" "You'll see. Enjoy the ride," said the rabbit. Henry got in and sat beside Rita in the carriage of the Ferris wheel. A safety bar automatically locked Henry and Rita into their seat, and then they were whisked away high above into the air. The little carriage came to a rest at the top of the Ferris wheel, and as it did, a rooftop and canopy automatically came over the carriage that came away from the Ferris wheel, and now it had become a small rocket ship that shot through the clouds and into the sky and beyond into outer space. They both looked out of the windows of the canopy back at the earth, and all around them were stars and strange shaped meteors. The little spacecraft weaved in and out between satellites and space pieces of junk, and then they saw what looked like a huge space station of some sort. It approached and opened up one of the doors where a tracer beam locked on to the little spacecraft, pulling it inside the station. Once inside the door, it closed, and the little space station docked the little spaceship into one of the ports. And then a voice through some speakers broke through the silence. "Welcome to the Ship of Dreams Fun Parlour. Use your tickets for any ride as long as you're here. Time does not exist here. Stay as long as you wish, or until your tickets run out." As the safety bar was released, Henry and Rita climbed out of the carriage. They took one look around, and they saw a rainbow bridge that went to a castle, and they both started to run across the rainbow that turned into a giant spiral slide that propelled them down and spun them around and around until they landed on top of a soft mushroom-shaped cushion jumpoline, where they sprang up and down in fits and fits of laughter until they finally got off the jumpoline and stood there on the ground. As soon as they did, this kangaroo hopped over and asked for a rainbow slide ticket and trampoline ticket. So Henry produced the book of tickets from his pocket, and the kangaroo tore out 2 tickets before handing them back, and off he hopped along a road. "Look, Henry, that must be the castle we saw before," Henry replied. "Rita, I'm so thirsty after all that jumping." "Me too. I have a craving for chocolate," she said. Suddenly, a strange vending machine hovered along the road and came to a stop at their feet. And lights began to flash around the machine, and a buzzing sound followed by whizzing and fizzing was heard inside the machine. Then 2 cups of soft drink and 2 blocks of chocolate were delivered from a chute at the front of the machine. And a voice from the machine said, "All refreshments are free on the Ship of Dreams. 3 rides to the castle keep or 1 ticket. 2 tickets will get you 3 rides and 1 chance to speak to the king of the castle, and 3 tickets will get you 3 rides to the castle and a chance to speak to the king and 2 photo postcards with the king." Rita looked at Henry and said, "How many tickets did the machine say for a ride to the castle?" Henry looked quizzed and replied, "I think it was 3 tickets for a ride." The voice from the vending machine said, "Wrong. I said it was 3 rides for 1 ticket." Then Rita said, "So is it 3 rides for 1 person or 2? The vending machine said, "The 3 rides are for 1 ticket and each of your tickets are for 2 people." Henry said, "So then it's 3 rides for 1 ticket for 2 people, is that correct?" The machine answered, "Why, yes, that is correct." Henry replied, "Okay, great. So, tell again, is the ticket to meet the king and have a photo 2 tickets or 3? No, 3 tickets will get you a chance to meet the king and have photos taken as well as 3 rides. Henry looked at Rita, who looked a little puzzled, and asked, "Rita, what do you think? Should we use 3 tickets for the 3 rides and a chance to meet the king and have some photos taken with him?" "Okay, Henry, that sounds great. Let's go." A closed shot lot at the top of the machine opened and a voice prompted Henry to put 3 tickets into the slot. Henry tore 3 tickets from the book and placed them inside. Suddenly, along the road, 2 white horses came galloping from the castle and pulled up right beside Henry and Rita. "Oh, I've never ridden a horse before," said Henry. But one of the horses said, "There's nothing to it. It's easy as. Just jump up on our back and we'll do the rest. Nothing to worry about." A little step emerged from the side of the vending machine that enabled Henry and Rita to climb onto the horse's back. In a few moments, the 2 horses made their way to the castle with Henry and Rita. Once inside the drawbridge, it came down, and Henry and Rita were welcomed by 2 stable hands who took the reins of the horses and helped Rita and Henry to dismount. When they were safe on the ground, again one of the horses said, "The king is in the keep of the castle, so you must wait here for a chance to meet him." How long do we have to wait?" said Rita. And one of the stable hands replied, "Once the king sees you offer no threat to him, he will leave the castle keep and speak with you. Shouldn't take too long." A court jester approached. "How would you keep a king happy?" Rita said, "I guess a king needs a party and lots of cake." Henry added, "Well, I think kings need to have a holiday, maybe go fishing on a lake." The jester laughed. Suddenly the king came from the keep and began laughing. "Happy king am I! A happy king! With some photos we will take! Welcome to the castle where dreams are wide awake!" And then people emerged from all over the castle, and the king ordered for his throne to be carried out, and he sent a message for the royal photographers to be sent for and make an appearance. And the people of the castle brought the king cake, and they started to have a party. And then a few photos were taken with Rita and Henry and the king on the throne. And then he asked Rita and Henry to come along and spend a little time with him fishing on the lake. By the side of the Silver Lake, the 3 of them got into a boat and rowed off to the middle of the lake. And fish leaped out of the water and into the boat without having to cast a line. The king sat for a time until across the lake a little motorboat scurried. From a speaker on the motorboat a voice said, "All your tickets are gone, and now it's time for you to return." Henry replied, "Wait a minute. I get 3 tickets for 3 rides, a chance to meet the king and some photographs." The voice on the boat replied, "That's right. You had a ride on 2 white horses, a ride in the king's fishing boat. You also have had photographs, and you met the king. So that's it. Time for you to leave now?" Rita said, "We still have one ride left." "Your last ride is with me, from the Silver Lake back to the planet Earth. You have no more tickets. All good things must come to an end, and now it's time to go." The king gave them a big hug, and he said, "Oh, you made me so happy. Thank you." Rita and Henry climbed on board the motorboat. When they turned around to wave goodbye, the king and the lake had disappeared. The motorboat was transformed into a rocket ship, and they zoomed across space towards Earth. The small spaceship landed back on top of the Ferris wheel, and they returned to the ground, where the rabbit took them by the hand and led them over to the door and said, "This is your lift back to the ground floor where things will be normal again." Rita and Henry got into the lift and pushed the button that took them to the ground floor. When the lift door opened, they walked out into the large, huge shopping complex in the Matrix Mall Centre. Henry looked at his watch, and not a second had passed since he first had parked the car. He looked at Rita, and Rita looked at him. And both of them were old again. However, inside, they felt really young. There were some people setting up a children's activity. It was a small jumping castle, and there were a few children waiting for a ride. The man who was supervising the jumping castle looked exactly like the king in the Castle of Dreams. Henry and Rita walked over to him, and they softly said, "Hello." The man smiled and replied, "Have a nice day, you two, and stay young. You know what? Children don't know how lucky they are to be living in a dream. Don't you agree?" Rita grabbed Henry's arm and she said, "Henry, we forgot to get the photos of us and the king." Henry replied, "We will just have to keep it in our memory, all the things that happened." As Rita and Henry went back to the lift, they were met near the lift door by a man with a camera, who quickly dropped an envelope into the shopping trolley. Henry shouted after the man, who was gone in a few seconds the other way. On the front of the envelope was a written message. It said, "It took me a while to get them processed, and even longer to get them here to you. In this envelope are your photographs you left behind. The king ordered me to get them for you, and to bring them here. I'm sure you will be pleased with them. Stay young." As they slowly opened up the envelope, they looked at the 4 photos of Rita and Henry. There they were, old people standing beside the man who ran the jumping castle, and 2 of the other photos were of them as children standing beside the king on the throne inside the Castle of Dreams. Rita and Henry both laughed, and then they made their way back to their car. They drove home and unpacked their groceries. Then they sat down, both of them, and fell fast asleep in the armchair. The end.